Guess who the character? Oh, are we ready?
Oh, we're doing
hey.
it. All right. Hi, everybody.
hey,
Welcome to Up
hey,
at Noon.
well,
We're
yeah,
doing it. It's Up at Noon.
We're doing it. Great show today. We're not live. I'm not here. Well, now I'm here. But we're making the show so that there will be a full episode on Thursday, which you already know because you're watching it. And it's not really live. It's not really
No. It's called Up at Noon Live, but it's actually pre-recorded down at 4:27. That's the time of day that we're recording on a Monday. Brian, you're currently up in Portland?
Yes.
You're doing a cool new show that's got you traveling around all over the place.
Yes,
yeah?
I'm doing a travel show for IGN called Fast Travel. You can watch the first episode with Barbara Dunkelman, and the second episode with Sydney Goodman goes live very soon in Seattle. I'm going to cool cities and finding bars and video game places and arcades, and sometimes bars and arcades that combine into a word that apparently I legally can't say because one company owns that word, and also toy stores and pizza places. So all the crap that you love from me.
That sounds like fun.
But in other places. But yeah, this is Up at Noon. Up at Noon airs on IGN.com, Twitch, Roku, Apple TV, Xbox One, PS4, Facebook. And this episode was produced by Tim Bukowski, the same dude that directed Edward Scissorhands. Why is that in there?
Who wrote that in the prompter? What does that even mean? So it's going to be a good episode. Why is good episode capitalized?
Wait, what?
Who wrote this?
I think we just got Ron Burgundy because we'll...
What the hell?
Yeah, we will read anything you put in there.
Yeah. I mean, I was just going to see what happened next in the prompter, but yeah.
We got breaking news. Jordan, who is in the back room, is allowed to write stuff in the episode thing never again.
Yeah.
Or every week.
Yep, he's at it.
They're very happy about that.
Doing a bad thing. Anyway, yeah. So
I love that. Thank you for that.
Okay. What the hell are we doing here? Okay.
We don't have any breaking news because
No.
So I think we should make some up.
We can make some up.
Yeah.
Nathan Drake
Yeah.
was caught rollerblading.
That's it. Yeah.
They got him.
Yeah, he's going full dad.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't really know what's going on with that dude these days. He had a rough couple years, you know.
He fell off the rocks.
He got Uncharted 4.
He got Uncharted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like it kind of sucks for him at home because he's got a cool wife, but she only lets him have a PS1. And there's a lot of new games. He wants to play the new Uncharted game, and he can't. He only has to play Crash Bandicoot.
That'd be pretty terrifying to find out
do?
that you're the star of a video game. Like if somebody just got you that, and you were like, well, I'm not in the game.
Like that's his Truman Show. That'd be bad.
That'd be pretty weird.
We got other breaking news. All the people in Bloodborne are still staying inside the house tonight because it's nasty out there. There's wolves and a golem and all sorts of garbage.
Well, good. They've got all sorts of wine and probably old books to read or something. I don't know.
They're having a good guffaw behind closed doors.
Yeah.
That
anyway,
can't join in on.
Okay, so we don't have any breaking news. I apologize for that, but I figured there's something we could talk about.
That's right. It's Yoda. He's very sick.
Why did they let? I don't know why you're allowed to do that.
Very sick.
All right, Yoda's very sick.
It's a magical.
He's an ill old man.
Frog.
He's a magical. Yes, he's not doing so hot.
Hold on. Let's see. Let's take a look at how.
Are we just gonna play with the toys today? I hate that. I hate that toy. He's still. What? All right, you done?
He's done.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So obviously, The Last Jedi came out tail end of last year, and it pissed everyone off because it changed a bunch of stuff that we didn't. I don't even know. Are we past the point of spoilers with that movie? Can we just talk about it?
Yeah. Come on.
Okay. If you're worried about Last Jedi spoilers, just go watch it. It's out. You can go find it wherever.
Yeah, we're good.
Obviously, a lot of people were pissed off because Rian Johnson took a bunch of stuff that J.J. Abrams had kind of set up with The Force Awakens, and it seemed like he sort of scrapped it and threw it out the window. And most recently, I think an interview with Simon Pegg popped up where he said that J.J. Abrams did have plans for stuff to do with Rey's parents. He didn't specify too much what it was, but he said that it was different from what wound up being in The Last Jedi.
Yes. Yeah. Which obviously irked some people because there's this idea, or there at least should be an idea, or a hope, that there is a plan going into all of these movies and that these things sort of got scoped out. It was like 10, 11 years between Revenge of the Sith and The Force Awakens, that we were sort of just like, well, obviously for them to bring this franchise back, it's because they have a big master plan.
Also, I mean, in that time, we got introduced to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is all planned very far ahead. We're about to see the kind of the culmination of all that with Infinity War, which is really exciting, and it's kind of cool to see a movie studio able to plan that far ahead and to plot everything out. And I don't think I'm alone expecting that Star Wars was going to do the same thing.
Yes.
Because it's kind of funny that Star Wars had a more strict strict kind of rule of what was and wasn't canon than anything that we saw with Marvel. There's a bunch of stuff in Marvel that kind of, if you go back really far, it just gets confusing and kind of, there's, things get retconned here and there. But as far as like putting stuff on the big screen, I feel like they pumped the brakes on kind of churning out sequels with different studios and just started actually making a cohesive cinematic universe.
Yeah.
And it's sort of weird to hear that Star Wars, which has a better track record of saying what is or isn't supposed to be happening, hasn't really been doing that. Obviously, there's the story group who keeps track of what is officially kind of sanctioned and what isn't. But it's odd that directors are not necessarily knowing what, like the fact that JJ did The Force Awakens and then Rian Johnson did The Last Jedi, and JJ didn't know what Ryan was going to do, and now it's JJ's, the ball's back in his court.
Right,
and he's got to problem solve or just address everything that Ryan said.
And that only happened sort of by fluke. I mean, not necessarily fluke. It was eventual design, but this was not supposed to. I'll put it this way: the sort of like the sequel trilogy, as we've been calling it, right, is effectively now a J.J. Abrams trilogy that had a weird Rian Johnson commercial break in the middle of it.
Right.
And it wasn't supposed to be designed by that way. It was supposed to be Colin Trevorrow handling the third movie in the trilogy. So you had 3 different directors, 3 different visions, maybe hopefully one overarching story. But what you got instead, with Colin Trevorrow getting moved off of that project to go work on more dinosaur films, which I'm a big fan of, we got J.J. Abrams, Rian Johnson, J.J. Abrams. So basically, J.J. Abrams passed the torch to Rian Johnson. Rian Johnson killed
he
killed
waved the torch around,
Yeah.
he, like burned some stuff, and
And now he's just sort of handing everything he made. And again, for the record, I like that movie, and so did you. But he's handing that franchise back now to J.J. Abrams with Luke gone.
Right.
Han and Luke never really had a moment where
No.
Princess Leia is alive in the narrative, but her actress is not.
Which is complicated.
Which is not something that Ryan felt the need to deal with. And so now you have this weird, kind of crazy interlude in the middle of this trilogy.
And what's weird to think about, this is the third Star Wars trilogy. And it's kind of funny because we keep doing this thing where we're like, this is or isn't what Star Wars should be. But really, there isn't exactly a tight style guide yet for this. The idea of there being different directors handling each film. Everyone always kind of accredits George Lucas for Star Wars, and it's his baby. But the original trilogy was, he directed the first one, with heavy editing by his wife, Marsha Lucas, and then Irvin Kershner did the second one, and then it was Richard Marquand who directed Return of the Jedi, and those were all kind of written by different people, and I don't think he was planning those too far ahead.
No, obviously, you can tell because the main character kisses the other main character that turns out to be his twin.
Which is a weird thing. That's kind of writing yourself into a corner, and he's always got that thing where he's like, oh, it was all part of the original vision and everything. And then with the prequels, they're all kind of heading towards something inevitable.
Yes.
The prequels are, it's sort of just rearranging stuff, and really it's explaining where stuff came from, but you already knew how it ended. You know how the prequels were going to end. You just didn't know exactly what happened in there.
Yeah.
So there's never really much of a surprise there.
Sure, and then you've got known quantities like Rogue One and Solo, which I think sort of eventually funnel into the inevitable.
Yeah.
Right? They're padding out backstories of stuff that we already know how it goes.
Yeah,
right?
we know how Solo, a Star Wars story, ends.
Yeah.
Han Solo dies in The Force Awakens. Like, that's the ending of that. So
exactly.
It's sort of weird, and it's just odd to see. Like, I guess I'm curious. Like, how tightly are they going to start kind of reining this in?
Yeah.
Once we get episode 9, are they going to start plotting entire trilogies in advance? Obviously, Rian Johnson's getting his own whole trilogy.
Right, which is, I think, interesting because it's so removed from everything else that there are no sort of pretenses of what it should be, or what it should be like, or what he should be doing with beloved characters, unless he decides to bring those in. But I guess the question we're really trying to answer here today is, should Star Wars filmmakers know what's going to happen in future movies? Like, it feels like a lot of these movies are sort of happening in a vacuum. Obviously, there's a story group. We know that. We know that some of the people that work there, like, they're in charge of very, very awesome stuff.
Yeah. But at the same time, the original Star Wars films were made up as they went along.
Yeah, so there is this notion that Rian Johnson inherited a bunch of sort of concepts and questions from J.J. Abrams, and then sort of threw them away, didn't necessarily answer them, maybe answered them with different questions, or sort of made them non-issues, something like Rey's parents, right? And so now he is taking all of this and he's handing it back to J.J. Abrams. When that's happening, like, does J.J. come in with a clean slate? Can he take out all the characters that were established in The Last Jedi and just go in a different direction with them? When he ends that movie, does he have to say, like, here's the plan for the next guy? Like, how is it like, a hotel where you can come in and trash the joint, and then people come in and clean it up for you, and then like someone else stays there and it's
also,
fresh.
We're conditioned to think about.
Can you take the towels?
Yeah, they charge you for them, but
That's true.
yeah, I mean, we're conditioned to think of Star Wars in terms of trilogies. You know, there have been 2 trilogies. They're working on a 3rd one, but what if there's an episode 10 and 11 and 12? You know?
Yeah.
Like, what if episode 9 ends on a cliffhanger? Like, that would throw everybody for a loop to be like, oh no, there's a different one after this, and that's gonna. And we're all just thinking about it like, because it's, in the words of George Lucas, it's like poetry. It rhymes. You know, but
I mean, Infinity War wasn't supposed to be 2 movies.
No.
And then one day they were like, it's 2 movies, and we were like, cool, that's 2 movies we get to watch now.
Yeah.
That's 6 hours of Infinity War.
Yeah, so anyway, it's weird to think about. I'm very curious to see where Star Wars goes. It's just sort of odd. We've got a brand new Star Wars movie coming out in like a month, and I'm kind of just sort of like, yeah, I'll see it.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's going to do. I don't know. It doesn't really move the needle in terms of these new characters. It's sort of just.
I totally agree. I'm excited for it, but I'm also just excited for Star Wars in general. I like that universe. I like those stories. I like finding out more about them. I do think it's really interesting to sort of see this from the perspective of directors coming in and kind of doing what they want to do, but also having to kind of service a larger narrative. And that's such a weird spot to be in, because like, you know, it's. I think eventually you're going to be in the situation where you can't win, right? Because the audience has different visions of what they want Star Wars to be, and then you have whatever the person who just worked before you handed you, you know, and then whatever you're working on, you have to hand to somebody else. So I think if you're smart and you're a director and you want to make a Star Wars movie, work on one of the one-offs, unless you're Lord and Miller.
Yeah.
Then that doesn't.
Yeah, or Josh Trank.
Yeah, it didn't.
Or Gareth Edwards.
Yeah, it didn't.
Anyway,
work out.
so the moral of the story is we don't know anything about Star Wars or what its future holds.
Yes.
But dying to find out.
Yeah, but fingers crossed. IGN recently published an article called The Top 100 Video Games of All Time. And it's a fascinating list, and like every list ever published everywhere, it's incorrect. I'll say that, because there is no correct list. It's a trick question, right? So the thing about this list is that going in to rank the list of the best video games of all time, first of all, next to impossible Herculean undertaking, because you're dealing with hundreds, thousands and thousands of video games, right? Now from there, the criteria gets narrowed down to what's accessible,
Yeah.
what has lasting appeal, all these things like that, right? And now I believe the #1 game on our list was Super Mario World, which is a damn near perfect game, like undebatably perfect game.
Right, but the cutscenes suck.
I think the cutscenes are fine. You blow up the little.
Well, I mean,
castles.
it's funny because we've got Tetris and The Last of Us being graded on the same rubric.
Yeah.
Because like, what is a video game?
Yeah, so it's tough to do, right? And because I'm stupid, I read a lot of the comments about these things, and obviously there's a lot of debates, and there's a lot of people who are, like, great list, I disagree with this, and this. There are other people who are like, you guys are the worst. It happens, it's okay, it's all part of the job. I noticed a lot of sentiment from people saying that game is incorrect to be #1 on the list, which of course you're entitled to that opinion, but suggesting modern games that should be there on the list. And it got me thinking, Super Mario World is at this point graded on a scale of a lens of 20-something years ago, right? Super Mario World came out in the mid-90s.
And I mean, it still works as a video game, but if you're not really into platformers, it's sort of like, what are you looking for in a game? You know?
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't have any. It's not 3D. There's no voice acting. It's not. I mean, video games are an iterative medium.
Yeah.
And it's really funny to see how we kind of will hold up a modern game that has, it's standing on the shoulders of giants. These are games that have all worked on the past. So.
And so when Super Mario World first came out, widely regarded as a classic instantly. It was a system seller. It was the thing that made you buy a Super Nintendo, which then luckily became one of the dozens and dozens of reasons to own that wonderful system. But it got me thinking, what if we looked at the list of all the games that IGN has given a perfect score to, a 10 out of 10, doesn't mean they're perfect, just means it's the highest score we can possibly give them, and looked at them through the lens of how they will age in 30 years. Now, putting it this way, Super Mario World, I think, has aged exceptionally well. And I ask you, Max, why do you think that is?
Because it's mechanically sound, and it does everything it sets out to do, and that nothing in there has aged poorly.
Yeah.
It's I don't know. It works.
It's accessible too, right?
I think it's scoped itself well.
I think you could hand a kid a controller and that title screen will start and it'll say press start, they'll hit the button, they'll start jumping around after that first cutscene that you hate. And they'll start...
I just talk too much, it's too wordy.
It is wordy. And they'll start collecting things and then you'll find Yoshi and all of a sudden you'll be on this adventure and you'll be like, I get it, I'm really into this. We've noticed as we've gotten older that modern games don't particularly age as well. A lot of them have to get sort of like remakes and overhauls and stuff like that. So let's go through the list of the 10 games, and there have been 10 games, that IGN has given a 10 out of 10 to this generation, and talk about how well you think they'll age in 20, 30 years. Because we all know they're classics right now. In fact, some of these games only a few years old at this point, and we're already sort of questioning the reviews we gave them. I think you and I do that with games the day they come out here. It's totally healthy. Starting with The Last of Us. The Last of Us Remastered came out on PlayStation 4, originally on PS3. One of the most, I think, touching and incredible, exceptional narratives that we've ever seen put to a video game, period.
And it's a great video game in addition to that. It's not just like they put a few button prompts into a movie.
Yeah, exactly. I would say sort of heavily inspired by The Road, which is an incredible book and movie. It tells the story of Joel and Ellie, a father and a daughter-like figure who go on an adventure and find out that Ellie is effectively immune to a virus that the rest of the world is being destroyed by. An evil plague that turns people into cauliflower heads.
Yeah.
Within all that becomes a sort of great buddy action game, a incredible stealth game, some of the smartest sort of uses of QTEs and boss fights and all sorts of things. But this game very recently got an entire new overhaul, right? It got a remaster. And that's so people who didn't own a PS3, which was many, 70% of the people who owned a PS4 actually hadn't played this game, could play this game again for the first time. And so I think immediately we already got to see how it aged from generation to generation, right? Of all the games we go through on this list today, I think this is one of the few that we will see actually jumped from PS3 to PS4, generation to generation. And I think that like on the heels of something like God of War and more narrative-driven games that are coming out, do you think this game will hold up in 30 years? As like, not necessarily in its current form, maybe even like with remakes and new iterations and stuff like that?
No.
You don't think so?
No, I don't think so. I think that there's an interesting kind of, there's kind of like a inconsistency here where they're very, very grounded, very real sort of human characters in this game. And then at the same time, there's very clear video gamey puzzles and problems. You know? There's a thing where you have to push a block around or whatever. And that's not the fault of a video game. That's like a thing that's part of games. That's solving puzzles and everything. But I think that there's stuff in there that is going to stick out more clearly as being sort of video gamey and obtuse. You know, and there's I don't know.
So I guess my counterpoint to something like that is I feel like those issues that actually describes most of Ocarina of Time, right? Which came out in 1998. It got remade on the 3DS recently. I think that game mostly holds up.
At the same time, that also has the benefit of being like colorful and fantastical, and it's like it's when people picture a video game, it looks more like Ocarina of Time than it does like a movie based on a Cormac McCarthy book. I think that there's the uncanny valley too. I think that obviously The Last of Us Remastered looks fantastic now. The Last of Us 2 is going to look even better. It's pushing the hardware to its limits, but at the same time, it's still trying to capture sort of human face in a video game.
And we've long argued, in this industry, in this medium in general, that the more realistic a game looks, the more incredible it feels that day it's out, but the worse it sort of ages over time. And I think there's exceptions to that, right? You look at the original Metal Gear, that's a game that I think sought for realism, or Metal Gear Solid and stuff like that. And now sort of kind of looks like funny and low poly now, but there is a sort of warm nostalgia to that. And so I think nostalgia does play a big part of this. Having grown up with Ocarina of Time, replaying it on 3DS, I was able to sort of ignore a lot of the weird kinks and faults around that game and just indulge in it for what it represents to me in my childhood. I don't know if someone approaching The Last of Us for the very first time will be able to find the same kind of narrative nuance that we did.
No, I think in 20 years it'll probably suffer from the same thing that something like the first Resident Evil suffers from, where it was doing groundbreaking things when it came out, but again, video games are iterative, and over time it will gradually get sort of chipped away at, and other games will come in and take things that it did and expand upon them and improve. So
next on the list is Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. We gave that game a 10 out of 10. I think you and me would argue that that's one of the best games of this generation. I don't think either of us would say it's a 10 out of 10.
No. That's one of my favorite games of all time. I've talked about this on the show how I adore this game. This game isn't finished, and there's all kinds of stuff wrong with it. Like it's got lots of problems. And I don't think it's going to age well at all. And I think already people look at it and they're like, people were like, this is the worst game in the series, or this is the most disappointing story of the entire Metal Gear franchise. And it's all over the place tonally, and there's stuff in there that's going to, they're electrocuting a woman in a bikini there. That's already not aging super great. But there's stuff in there, there's like microtransactions to, improve your base building. And then there's just like the actual moment-to-moment gameplay when you're actually in there playing the game. It's fantastic, but at the same time, there's also, Breath of the Wild came in and has similar concepts at play that almost feel like more streamlined and more kind of like distilled. It's a very technical game to play. You pick your loadout at the beginning of each mission, and then there's, it definitely works, but again, it's...
I'll ask you this, can you imagine Konami in a decade or 2 decades or 3 decades, or whatever shell of that company is left at that point, remasters this game for a modern audience? Like with or without the help of Kojima, maybe they'd burn bridges by the time he's
really
80.
hard to imagine.
Same, yeah. I adore the gameplay of this game. I think it has some of the best gameplay of this generation. I think the story is a mess, but that's par for the course. And I think, just like you said, it just sort of stops. Like it just kind of doesn't really have an ending. There's that. That's gross.
Yeah.
But the gameplay itself is really fun, and I think for anybody looking for something like that 30 years from now, I think that loop will still hold up. I think that open world games might fare a little better under the lens of time, because I think they get kind of a free pass on a lot of stuff.
Also, in the defense of Metal Gear, people are still playing the originals. People compare this to Snake Eater, which came out in 2004.
Yeah.
It's kind of nuts. That's the original Metal Gear Solid. People adore that game. Like Metal Gear Solid 2 was.
So to answer the question, will this game hold up? I would say maybe. Possibly.
I think people are going to notice its faults in a much more glaring sense. I do not think this is a 10 out of 10 game. I absolutely adore it, but. Yeah, man, it's got problems.
That's right. Next up, Grand Theft Auto 5, remastered for this generation, one of the biggest sort of pop culture events in the history of our species.
We just found out this is the best-selling piece of media,
ever.
Entertainment
it's
media
made more money than literally anything ever. And it holds up really well. It's remastered again from a PS3 game. You would never know the difference. There is something really interesting that I've picked up about the GTA games, and that's that we spent the last 6 or 7 years watching them get ported to places like iPhone and Android and other places. And I went back to a bunch of the very early GTAs and realized they're still really fun. And there's something kind of inherently goofy about them. They are still great, fun chaos simulators, right? To go into Liberty City and just kind of mess around and get in a bunch of trouble. Some of the missions in the early GTAs don't really hold up.
Oh no, the second you hit a forklift mission, it just stops being fun.
Yeah, and checkpoints get difficult. But I think this game fixes a lot of that stuff. And obviously, we're going to get GTA games for years to come. Although this generation might be the first generation without one in a very long time.
Seems very possible.
Which is odd. I think this game is going to hold up, and I think you'll be able to play it on. You'll be able to play it on a phone in 10 years. Which is
easy.
Insane.
Yeah.
But I think 20, 30 years from now, this will be the kind of thing where you'll be able to access anywhere.
When I used to work at Rev3 Games, and Adam Sessler reviewed this, and he said that he compared it to a Dickens novel, and that it's basically this massive sprawling satire of the time that it came out. I absolutely think that's true. I think that it is a fantastic game tonally. I think that it understands what it's saying. It's incredibly angry. I'm sure there's stuff that won't be politically correct in 10 years or 15 years.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think that they managed to kind of future-proof it by... they had that thing that I know was controversial when they rolled it out in L.A. Noire, but if you fail a mission enough times, it's just like, hey, do you want to just skip this part?
Yep.
So
I appreciate that.
Yeah. If it becomes a pain in the ass to play it on your iPhone X5 or whatever we're playing on in 10 years, then maybe that'll streamline things a bit. Going back and trying to jump on, on San Andreas or whatever on, I think I was trying to play that on a Vita, and it's just like, it's just fun. You can play it on a phone, which
Yeah.
is crazy. And like that's, but at the same time, there are parts in there that don't age well, you know. And people always notice those, and it seems almost like it would damage the game to go back and tweak that part of it. But to kind of bake in something that allows it to sort of be more streamlined and painless.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it'll be like #1 on IGN's or whatever IGN is in 30 years, 20 years, probably gone.
But also,
list
I
of
mean,
100 best games of all time.
We also
but-
look at it. That game came out in 2013, and they're still pushing updates to it.
Yep.
They're still adding new stuff to it, and the community is still going strong and modding in all sorts of nonsense.
In terms of games that will never get an update because they are just done, The Witness, we gave that game a 10 out of 10. I'm not the biggest fan of this game. I appreciate what it's trying to do. I think the world is gorgeous. It makes me really want a Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote game. Kylie Coyote, that's his wife.
Ew.
And this is effectively just a. This game is basically an excuse to push players into a bunch of really smart puzzles. And the way the puzzles work is there are systems that you learn as you go, and if you sort of learn a language through this. And in that way, I think it's really smart, and I think it'll age well, especially because visually it's sort of simple, and I mean that in the nicest way possible.
No, it's stylized. It's gonna
Yeah.
it's gonna age like Wind Waker visually. But
Yeah.
at the same time, it's also a fully realized 3D environment where you're effectively going around doing paper puzzles.
Yeah.
Like you might as well be in like a hyper realistic couch doing Sudokus on a piece of paper.
Yes.
Like it's sort of. I think this is gonna age the same way that Myst aged. Where Myst was gorgeous when that came out in what 94, 95 or whatever. Everyone was like super stoked on it. I remember that looking photorealistic when I played it, but I also remember it being like frustrating and obtuse. I was also like a little kid at the time, but I don't see really anybody going back and playing a whole lot of it. Though they did just I think announce they're trying to remaster it or something. But you know, in the same way that like old LucasArts point and click games, occasionally the puzzles are just sort of annoying. Like they just become like a. They're like, aha, I gotcha. I'm clever, but
I think that's the smartest thing you could have said is that this is this generation's Myst, and in that way, that game is still highly celebrated. When it gets ported and remastered and stuff like that, people kind of still pick their ears up a little bit.
I think that people are more likely to look back on The Witness than they are to continue championing it.
Yeah.
Like I think people will be like, wow, I had the craziest time with that. That was great back in 2015 or whatever. So
yeah,
you know.
so we'll see if that holds up. Also, Inside, which is a game we gave a 10 out of 10. I don't know if we have footage for that. Inside is Playdead's, hard to say.
It was like Limbo 1.5.
You know, a
Which is
highly stylish, violent video game about a boy in the woods. There are at least 3 or 4 more colors in this game than there were in Limbo, which is,
the boy has a slightly reddish shirt.
which was huge. I think it tells a really insane and bleak story about sort of exploration and whimsy and a sort of children being left on their own and exploring the world and the sort of trouble and danger they get into. It's got this very sort of dreamlike quality to it, and it becomes more and more nightmarish. It's about 2.5, 3 hours long. I think this game won't necessarily age well because I feel like Playdead is the type of studio where every 3 or 4 years we're going to get a new game from them that's going to sort of vastly improve on the last one.
I think that's totally true. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't particularly think that Limbo has been ported to literally everything at this point.
Yep.
I think it's that and the Inside are also still coming to Switch, so I'm always down to give it another chance. And I really enjoy both the games. But
I thought that Inside was much more enjoyable to play.
yeah,
I
definitely.
think that I don't know, like the puzzles were a little bit less frustrating, and then parts where it was like, I don't know, timing based, like the checkpointing was more forgiving. It didn't push back. Like it was still like a satisfying challenge.
Yep.
But it didn't push back in as frustrating a way as some parts of Limbo do.
Yeah, I thought the controls were great. There's a much sort of more believable locomotion and sort of rhythm to the way this character moves that Inside or that Limbo didn't necessarily have. That said, it's highly stylized, so I think visually you'll be able to recognize this game almost immediately in 20, 30 years. But I don't really think it's going to hold up like something like Super Mario World did.
No.
You know? But I'm not sure really
I don't know.
why that is.
I could see this being like finding a whole new audience on phones. But it's also it is sort of it's weird and it's bleak.
Yeah.
It's Mario's like a happy thing. This is that's not a happy game at all. That's upsetting as hell.
That's horrifying. If you haven't played this, play this at least now, then do it in the next 20, 30 years and leave us a comment on it.
Yeah, come back in 30 years and check in on us.
The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. 10 out of 10 from IGN. 2 of the games we gave a 10 out of 10 to last year that had Nintendo logos in the corner of them. It took us a while to get to the Nintendo stuff on this list, which is interesting. But this game, so much is said about this game. I don't really know what else to say to convince you that this is a brilliant masterpiece of a game. For hardcore Zelda purists like myself, it does take a bit of a step backwards in some departments like dungeons, but I think it makes up for it with shrines, which are effectively 120 micro-sized puzzle dungeons. People are still finding things to do in this game. They are still playing this game in weird, broken ways. They are magnetizing broken carts into the sky. They are sort of bomb jumping across the entire world, using kinetic energy to fly on broken trees. Just crazy, crazy stuff. I think this is sort of like, in the same way that it's still fun to play GTA games, I feel like this is going to hold up for a very, very, very long time.
I completely agree. I think that this is just so many systems that are all fine-tuned so well. And it's, aesthetically, I think that you could probably like bump this up to 4K and it would probably still look fine because it's got that wonderful cell-shaded style to it.
Yeah, we've actually seen that with people running it through Project Dolphin, which is the Wii U emulation.
So I think this is a very future-proofed game. It's also, I don't know, it manages to feel like kind of a combination of every other Zelda game before it. So.
Yeah, I think one of the things we've noticed in a lot of the writing that we've talked about in these games is that they aren't necessarily tied to sort of like any sort of specific thing. You look at a game like, I don't know, Super Paper Mario or Guacamelee, like there's memes in those games, like there's there's internet jokes, and like we might be talking and communicating completely differently in 30 years. So I always kind of cringe at that kind of stuff because I don't really think it'll hold up well. Undertale is a game we gave a 10 out of 10 to, I believe, 2 years ago. And that was actually a while after the game had been out already. We sort of decided to revisit it or kind of give it the attention it deserved.
And that came to Vita and PS4.
Yeah, and I believe it's coming to Switch also.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So the good news is this was made in MS Paint, so it's going to age as well as it can.
Yeah.
I think that this is gonna live on. I mean, it's made as an homage to Earthbound, which people have been obsessed with for 20, 25 years or whatever. So it's self-aware, but in a way that's not really. It doesn't feel like it's desperately trying to be contemporary. It feels like kind of a product of the people who were making it. So
yeah, and it's sort of memey. I mean, a lot of the characters are named after fonts that come with your computer. There's someone named Doggo.
But it's, I don't know.
We'll see. But I think it's charming enough that you can sort of get a pass on that. And yeah, this visual style is going to age incredibly well, as evidenced by every game that's ever looked like this.
I mean, nothing else looks like this, because why would it? It's exceptionally weird, and I think that's gonna serve it well. I think this is gonna age like Twin Peaks.
Yes.
There's a good Venn diagram of strange people who enjoy both those things.
Next up, Super Mario Odyssey, a game we gave it a 10 out of 10 to. I don't want to get into the debates on this. I adore this game. It's fantastic. I don't think it's a 10 out of 10. I think that, I honestly still think that Mario 64 does some stuff better in terms of sort of quest design and the rollout. But this is an undeniably beautiful game, incredibly fun. We don't really know how well it'll hold up, but I think that Mario 64, 20 years after the fact, still having this incredibly dedicated speedrunning community who are around it, and people who are still digging out secrets inside of it, shows to me that there's a timeless quality to Mario games that I think people will still enjoy 20, 30 years from now. And the very necessity that this entire conversation that we're having today started from the fact that Super Mario World, which came out in the 90s, 1990 specifically, and is now almost 30 years old, still holds up well and beat our, every other game on our list. I think Mario Odyssey will really hold up well. What I don't think will hold up well is stuff like the waggling motion control stuff that's forced in there. That's the weird thing about the sort of the evergreen quality of a lot of modern Nintendo games, is that when they're based around dual screens or touchscreen or waggle or pointer controls, it makes them harder to port to other platforms. Whereas Mario 64 pretty much just requires an analog stick, or in the case of the DS version, not even that. So we'll see. I think this game's going to hold up. I think people will still be playing this game in 20 years. I think Nintendo will still let you play this game in 20 years because they'll remake it. They'll port it to whatever weird version of Virtual Console they'll hopefully have launched by then. And I think it'll still be really fun because it's just a really good game. game.
Yeah, I think they do a pretty good job of
Yeah.
keeping Mario pretty timeless, except when he's like, running a hotel or teaching typing or whatever.
Yep. Last two we'll go through real quick. Our most recent 10s were just in the last few months. Celeste, we gave a 10 out of 10. Celeste is a really, really challenging, really fun action platformer that actually has some heart. It tackles sort of failure and depression, which is odd. You don't really get that from a lot of action platformers. It's also incredibly forgiving in that it lets you play on kind of an easier mode, or if you want to play on harder modes, you can, and even within those confines, you can go even further and try to collect all the strawberries in the level. There is sort of a timelessness to this game almost immediately, again, based on the art direction. It's easy to see how games like this age well because they aren't based on realism, they're hyper stylized. The controls are tight and precise, and they're really fun and they're really awesome. And I think this game is already finding more and more of an audience every single day. I recommend this highly to anybody looking for a game like this to play. Even if you're not, like it's just so much fun. Even if you're not really into this genre.
I mean, I think there's no denying it's a great game. I wonder if people will still be talking about it in 20 years, given that it's paying so much of an homage to games from 20 years ago.
Yes.
I think that it's going to kind of fall. Like there's an increasing amount of 16-bit style platformer games on Switch already.
Yeah.
I think this doesn't do enough original to really, maintain a legacy.
Yeah.
It's like a really, I don't know what I would compare that to.
I think you're right. I mean,
Yeah.
it does. It's just a really, really awesome, really tight platforming game. Will there be a community around that? Maybe in the same way we talked about Odyssey having a speedrunning community. I think that will continue to happen with Celeste. I put it up there with stuff like Shovel Knight, that's like both original and iterative and owes a lot to its source material, but also is strong enough to stand on its own. We'll see in terms of those games. Let us know what you think. Most recently, we put this list together, and this just came in, God of War, 10 out of 10, which right off the bat, I had some minor grievances with some pacing stuff in this game, but otherwise I have nothing but really positive things to say about this game. I think it's already going to stand the test of time better than any God of War game ever has. I don't particularly think that those were the best games to sort of revisit. I think their kind of like prerequisite arcadey style made it really fun for the time, and then tonally as well. But I think that this game is really special. Again, though, it is based on like sort of creating something that's realistic as possible, or at least realistic as possible based on fantasy.
See, I think that's interesting because it creates that in the space of it being a video game still.
Yes.
Like this feels like if video game characters came to life. Whereas, I mean, something like The Last of Us, which I keep comparing the two in my head because they both have like, powerful emotional moments and cutting edge graphics, and they're still really video gamey at times.
And they star
a
rough old man with
exactly.
a beard.
Yeah, there's some parallels here. But I think that in the case of God of War, it feels like I don't know. It's in this colorful fantasy world, and it's playing with themes that were already put down in place by video games.
Yep.
There's something kind of so like. It reimagines something, you know, and I think that because of that, it really makes something special that I think people will still be talking about.
I agree. I think this will hold up like, kind of like a really good action movie. Like
I think so, yeah.
I think this will hold up like something like Die Hard with a Vengeance, where you're like, okay.
I also think we're going to see another God of War 2 or a God of War something or other. They're going to put something in there.
Yeah, I don't think they built up this world and this story and these characters. And then got all those accolades just to kind of walk away.
Yeah, and I think that one's going to be like an Uncharted 2. I think it's going to be mind blowing. So I don't know.
So I don't know. Let us know what you think. How these games will hold up. These are just the games that IGN gave 10 out of 10s to, but maybe you have some games that are your favorite games.
Yeah, we forgot The Witcher 3, The Wild Hunt. I'm just going to put that out right there right now. That's a game that should be on that list.
It didn't get a 10.
No, it didn't. It got like a 9.7 or something.
Well, not good enough.
Nonsense.
Sorry, Max. No.
Poor Sapples.
So yeah, let us know how you think these games are going to hold up, if you'll still be playing them in 20, 30 years, if you think future generations will. I think that's really interesting because our industry is always forward-thinking and constantly evolving, but I don't know how necessarily future-proof a lot of our favorite games are. But we'll see. Time will tell.
Yeah.
Max, let's talk about toys and action figures.
Time to talk about toys.
All right.
So we've talked about these here and there on this show, but there's a line of action figures that is called SH Figuarts. They're made by Bandai. Sometimes they're called Tamashii Nations. I'm still unclear exactly what wording you're supposed to use when describing them. They've got like a bunch of different sort of private labels there. And I think it's safe to say they're some of the best action figures you can buy right now.
Yeah.
Obviously, there are people who love the 12-inch like soft goods, like Hot Toys figures. But as far as getting super articulated figures in a 6-inch scale, these are about the best thing that money can buy.
Yeah.
And we just wanted to take a minute to talk about them.
Yeah, we really like these. Now, for the record, I would say our philosophy with toys is that it's okay to spend a little more money on them when the quality is a lot better. And I think if you don't share that philosophy, that's okay. It's super easy to buy a $12 Luke Skywalker or a $20 6-inch Black Series Luke Skywalker, right? But in terms of some of these characters, I feel like this Bruce Lee is one of my favorite action figures ever made. It's just incredible. He comes with different hands and different faces.
These guys definitely don't skimp on accessories.
Yeah.
I got this Xenomorph. I think it was on sale. It wound up being like $30 total, and I was just playing with it like a little kid would. And it's got this, it's this iconic design, and they did a really good job with it.
Yeah, they're really fun to pose. They're usually going to run you around 50, 60, 70, 80, sometimes even more for deluxe versions.
Yeah, they do a bunch of Marvel Cinematic stuff that's pretty expensive, along with Star Wars figures, which are gorgeous, but they're actually really hard to collect because they'll do like a limited run, and then they'll be like really hard to track down after the fact. But some of them do stick around for a while. The Dragon Ball Z ones have been pretty easy to track. I think a company called Bluefin releases them stateside. I talked about this Goku on the show pretty recently, this little guy here. But they've got like a ton of those, and it looks like they're going pretty strong.
They also, if you collect Figmas, they kind of scale well with those.
I think they're like warring companies though.
Yeah,
I think the pegs and the hands are slightly different, so you can't mix and match. But
like I have like a Figma Twilight Princess Link, and I have like the Metroid Prime Samus and stuff like that, and the Zero Suit Samus, and they look really great together. They look like they're all sort of combined. I also really like the what they do at some of the human faces on some of these characters.
Yeah, they're great.
They're slightly stylized, and like I kind of appreciate that.
Yeah, this is Freddie Mercury, the lead singer of Queen. I think I also have the guys from Daft Punk floating around somewhere.
Yep.
And it's just funny because like these are figures who don't really need to pose that much, but it's really fun to pose them that much. Like Bruce Lee, he gets around. Like Freddie obviously danced around a bit on stage, but like the guys in Daft Punk, they mostly just stand behind a DJ booth and kind of do their thing. So
yeah, I appreciate how easy they are to pose too, and how sort of like liberal all of that is able to do, because it's sort of like you can get them into, like I had Bruce Lee like doing basically like kicks in the air, hanging on one foot with one hand up like this and one hand back, and it's like, yeah, most action figures can't do anything like that.
Yeah, they have a line of Ninja Turtles which actually have die-cast weights in the feet so that they can hold poses like with one foot directly in the air, and they'll hold a pose really well.
Yeah.
And they can be a little bit fragile if you're not careful, but if you're a discerning adult collector, it's not too bad.
So a bunch of these are on Amazon. I don't know if you got lucky with taxes, or there's a little extra money in your paycheck and you want something like genuinely beautiful to put on your desk that's also really fun to play with. Check out this line. Check out SH Figuarts, because they're super cool. Just typing that into Amazon will surprise you at like sort of the range. Like there's a Michael Jackson. There's
Michael Jackson's a Figma.
Is he a Figma?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Interesting. But yeah, they're kind of arbitrary with what they do with Star Wars. They are re-releasing the Return of the Jedi Luke, which I'm totally going to jump on because it's cool. He's in his like weird pajamas.
Yeah, it's like art major look to him.
I dig that a lot.
They still haven't done a Boba Fett for some reason.
That's crazy.
They've done a Django. They've done a Phasma.
There's like Kylo Ren.
Yeah, they've got a bunch of them. So take a look at those. If you're a big Marvel fan, big Star Wars fan, they got a bunch of stuff out there. And basically, they're some of the best figures you can get in this scale. So
now, we have been covering Amiibo here at IGN for years now. I actually spent a lot of time on NVC talking about the ups and downs of collecting those things. It was kind of difficult to do. But recently, we covered the fact that Sony, or PlayStation specifically, kind of partnered with this new company, what are they, Totaku, to create basically their own versions of Amiibo. They don't actually have any NFC functionality, so calling them Amiibo is a bit disingenuous.
Yeah, but it really riles up the commenters, so we love to do it.
So we'll do it. Bloodborne is one of my favorite games of all time. I think it'll hold up very well if you've been watching this episode. And this is the Hunter. What's especially awesome about this packaging is that he is facing the wrong way. And if you've played Bloodborne, that's what the title screen looks like. So it's really cool, really great packaging here. These run around $12, $13.
Well,
you can Yeah.
They were $10, but now they're sold out everywhere except on eBay, where they're like 5 times that at least.
Should I open this?
I think you should open it. Yeah.
So I got this through GameStop, who is the official partner, along with ThinkGeek, for these in America. They also make other ones. There's Kratos. There's Alloy. There is Parappa. Yeah, there's a couple. They're interesting.
Yeah.
So let's tear this open and take a look at what's inside. And
Did you hear that? Did you hear that?
Is that eBay money going away?
There's a bunch of collectors just really outraged.
I don't care.
I want to see what his face looks like.
Yeah, so the packaging is really cool right off the bat.
This is pretty much the same shape of a...
Yeah. So this is something you don't get in an Amiibo. You don't get a little play set, like a little paper stand like this, right? So that's...
Aw. Wow, that's a really low-res screenshot of Yarnum.
Yeah. I mean, it's not... It's running on a PS3.
Aw.
And then here he is. Here's the Hunter, and I think this is awesome. This is just perfect for the price here.
Oh man, yeah.
And so they got their own stands, and all their stands sort of correlate with what they're doing in the game. So here he's got the sort of blood-soaked streets of Yarnum, some old cobblestone there. This is such a cool little figurine. I dig him a lot. The paint's pretty minimal, but it's good, and I love the blood splatter around the back of him. He's got his cool saw blade and his weird feathered cap.
I feel like the build quality is a little bit flimsier than you get with an Amiibo.
Yep.
And the paint ops aren't quite as crisp, but it's still really fun.
Yeah, I like them a lot. Obviously, it's different than Amiibo because they again, no NFC functionality. You can't actually scan this into Bloodborne. It says Tataku on the bottom. It's a part of the collection. So if you want to start collecting these, man, I think you should have started already because they're already hard to get.
Yeah, good luck. I mean,
here they are now.
Hopefully, demand makes them make more of these.
Yeah, I'm like I said, I'm a huge fan of Bloodborne. It's one of my favorite games of all time. I just replayed it this year. It still holds up. Fantastic game. Bloodborne collecting in terms of like collectibles is kind of tricky because there's really high-end statues that are expensive. There's an action figure. I believe that's a Figma, right? Or is that a Figuarts?
That's a Figma.
It's a Figma that's coming out. That's like $110.
My theory is with Bloodborne is collecting it is just like playing it. You have to be good at it. So you either have to be really quick with that pre-order button, or you got to work your ass off and have the money for $700 statues.
Yeah.
So
and
get
so
good.
We just talked about $80, $70 action figures. This guy's 10, 12, 13 bucks. You can show other people that you love Bloodborne.
Yeah, check your local GameStop or ThinkGeek or whatever.
And also, you can just have them like this.
Yeah.
And then just because
like maybe he's mad at you. He doesn't want to talk.
Isn't that weird? There aren't a lot of toys that like you see them from behind like that, and you're like, oh, that's just as iconic as it is from. I love that.
Yeah.
Those are out now, and that's going on my desk because I love that boy.
Here, you can put them over here. So on the subject of toys to life and Amiibo and whatnot, one thing that kind of got killed before its prime was Disney Infinity, which I think at a glance looked like a dumb thing for kids, and it was just, it was a licensed Skylanders. But in reality, that was like a really fun game that had like a lot of depth to it. And the toys that, that came out for it were like really wonderfully stylized, and it was kind of a bummer when we found out that it got the plug pulled and they just stopped being a thing.
Yeah, so as a guy who really liked Amiibo, one of the things that was sort of bugging me out was that there was no real consistency across the board with their style. The Smash Brothers set was all based on renders from that game, but then they jumped into like the Mario set, the Mario Party set, the Animal Crossing set. They're all over the place, but these guys were very clearly designed from one singular vision.
And they all kind of look like they exist in Toy Story, which I dig. And the good news is, that style isn't entirely dead.
That's right.
There's a brand new line called Toy Box, which is, I think it's exclusive for the Disney Store, but they're making Star Wars, and they're making Marvel, and they're making Disney characters in this style, and they're like, look at them. They're the same. They're the same ones, but now they're bendy, and you can pose them.
So
and they
what's
look
awesome
like
about these,
Woody and Buzz. I love it.
They're really cool. They're articulate. They've got joints. They've got capes. They've got all this fun stuff. They've got accessories, which they point out in the box, like comes with a lightsaber.
I'm like, that's not really a selling point.
Yeah, well, it should.
And it's cool too because they're making characters who didn't get Disney Infinity figures out of the gate. I think they've got some. I want to say some Infinity War ones floating around.
Yep. They're not just doing Star Wars. They're also doing some from Toy Story. They're doing Spider-Man and Thor, and it sounds like Guardians of the Galaxy are coming up next. I got the Stormtrooper and Darth Vader for $10 each at the Disney Store, which is totally reasonable.
They're super articulated. So I don't know if you dig that like Disney Toy Story style, I think these are really really fun toys.
Yeah, from where you guys are sitting, you probably can't. They probably look really good. I think up close they look like a little rough around the edges, a little bit cheap.
It's funny because they're really posable, but they're also like they kind of got like the goofy like like Toy Story legs. You know,
Yeah.
like they're just like a little bit gangly here, and I think it's, I don't know, kind of dorky, but I sort of dig it.
But I really like these guys. I think they're chunky and stylized, which is really cool. I love the Darth Vader because he's got if you've paid attention to like all the Ralph McQuarrie concept art for the original Star Wars, Darth always had this very angular head, right? And I know a lot of people who play in Battlefront really want that head in there. This is kind of evocative of that design, which I really dig. And as you can see, it's very angular, very sort of over stylized, not necessarily like chibi like a Funko Pop or something like that, but vaguely, not super deformed, but vaguely deformed. Like you got a Boba Fett, which is like, you know, just awesome.
I mean, he looks just like the the Infinity figure, which I really appreciate. And there's no Disney Infinity branding on these whatsoever, but I know that like some people were starting to get really into the collecting of those. And it's just kind of cool to see that live on. And I'm glad that they're reusing these designs for something.
Yeah, I really dig this First Order Stormtrooper too. I hope they do more classic designs. I hope we get some monsters. That'd be really cool. I'd love a Jabba the Hutt or something like that, or even a Chewbacca would be really cool. Because actually, I love the Han and Chewbacca Disney Infinity figures.
Yeah, those are fun. I feel like it's pretty likely we'll get those. And if nothing else, it's kind of cool to get like the mainline Star Wars characters all together, or or the Avengers or whatever. I think we talked about on the show the Thor and Hulk and who was the other one? They did I think like a Cap or Iron Man or something, and it was just like they look how they should, and it's nice to see those out there. So if you want to grab those, check online or check your local Disney store or whatever. Put the dolls over here. I love that we have this show where like, hello everybody, it's us two adult men, watch us play with our dolls. Anyway, let's continue playing with our dolls. We got some new dolls from our good friends at Super7. Brian, you grew up loving the Planet of the Apes movies from the 70s.
Yeah, so the original Planet of the Apes movie is one of my favorite sci-fi movies of all time. If you've never seen it, please go watch it. I swear it holds up really well. You've probably seen the new Planet of the Apes movies, which are just completely different. And in a good way, in a bad way. But also, so the original Planet of the Apes movie is about this character named Taylor who basically time travels and wakes up in what he thinks is the past.
See, I still haven't watched this.
Yeah, so I won't spoil it for you.
I know that it's Charlton Heston, right? And he's got a diaper.
Yeah, so
he comes to Earth.
Super7 has done a really great job of capturing an era of action figures that is sort of long gone with this sort of through this reaction line. And that's basically nailing that kind of old school 4-inch scale Kenner movie toys, right? Which you don't really see a lot of anymore. You see a lot of like hyper stylized stuff or Funko Pops or like 6-inch scale, like really kind of over the top. But in terms of like kind of like by design goofy looking figurines that don't necessarily have the most like true likeness but are still really gorgeous, with great packaging, I think these guys are doing an awesome job.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, we did like an interview with them at their store, and they're telling us how people will come up and they'll grab these and be like, oh, I used to have this. And it's like, no, you didn't.
Yeah.
These came out, these are brand new.
It's like,
they don't look like it, but they are.
And so this line has stuff like Big Trouble in Little China, The Goonies, Terminator, like they've done like famous movie monsters and directors. There's a Hitchcock one.
And I think they're currently doing a bunch of He-Man ones.
Yeah, which I'm really interested in.
Which is really funny because they're taking Masters of the Universe, which were introduced as being like Star Wars killers because they were like bigger and more muscular, and they're like, yes, but what if they were in line with little tiny Star Wars figures? What if we made them like Kenner?
I think the art on the packaging here is just stunning.
Yeah.
Like, so these paintings are just incredible.
What does Cornelius come with here? Is that a bottle?
Yeah, I think so, or a rolling
like a rolling pin.
Yeah, he's a monkey, so he has to spank every now and then.
Oh, all right then. Okay. So yeah, these are what, like 15 bucks each?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
And Super7, they make some cool stuff.
And I want to open them, but I also don't. But I don't like keeping toys in the package, but I also don't want to tear up this art.
That's the problem with these guys is the packaging is really nice, but
they're so pretty.
But I want the half nude Charlton Heston to go play with my other dolls.
They're really good.
Over here. I want the
Super7 in general is just awesome. If you're in San Diego or in San Francisco, please go visit their store. And also their online shop is awesome. You can buy really good clothes there. I wear like a Jabba the Hutt and like a Link sweater, and every single time I wear them, everyone is like, where did you get that? It's Super7. So go to Super7, go to their website and check them out. Follow them on Twitter and Instagram as well.
So we want to talk about this. A Quiet Place is a movie that is in theaters right now, and it is people are loving it. People are having a great time watching it.
It's got something like a 98 or something on
it's like
Rotten Tomatoes.
Cleaning up at the box office. We don't want to spoil anything if you haven't seen it, but I highly recommend everyone go see it in the movie theaters, because the premise of it is that there are there are creatures out there that will go after sound.
Yes.
So everyone has to be very quiet. Unfortunately, some people suck at doing that at the movies.
Yes. The movie theater is a weird place to see a quiet film because the movie theater is where we go to clap and cheer and laugh and eat and crunch obnoxious food without judgment.
Right, like the term popcorn flick describes a movie. You go and you eat the popcorn, you have a good time. That's like a very loud food to eat in a quiet room when you're trying to enjoy cinema.
Yeah, so when I went to go see this movie, I went on a Saturday afternoon and it was incredibly quiet in the theater. It was loud going in, but then I realized that the theater sort of like got it. And I was lucky. And I had a bag of popcorn and I ate it so slowly and so quietly that it was just sort of like I waited for moments in the film where things got loud and just inhaled a bunch of food, which I don't know what that says about me, but there's no judgment, like I said. So if you're going to go see this movie, don't see this movie with people who ask questions the entire time. Don't see this movie with your friends who are loud idiots and crack jokes and think they're doing a Mystery Science Theater thing. That's fun to do at home, though. Max and I are very guilty of that.
Yeah, no, that's fun sometimes, but this is definitely... This when it says a quiet place on the marquee above the theater, that should be describing the theater itself. Some of the folks at my screening did not get that memo. There was an entire family in my row who I joke you not, brought a Razor scooter into the movie theater, and their 2 toddlers and a stroller, and I looked over and they're unpacking they had like large-sized bags of chips. They're sneaking in all kinds of food. They had like a large submarine sandwich. They had all this stuff, and I was just like, before the movie started, we're just like giving them the stink eye. This couple comes in and sits down next to me. I'm like, oh, this is a nice couple, whatever, they'll be quiet. And then the trailers start, and the guy starts translating in German to his girlfriend.
Oh my God.
And he's like muttering to her, and I'm like, are you kidding me? You're dubbing the movie in real time? And then he pulls out a giant bag of popcorn, he's eating that. Aside from the popcorn, he was fairly quiet, and the family was inexplicably quiet. I don't know if they just fed the children Benadryl or what, but they went very quiet. Those kids would have survived very well in that universe. Who wasn't quiet was the man who fell asleep and proceeded to snore very loudly through most of that film. Also, I think somebody was trying to open one cough drop for half that movie.
So that's totally something that's possible. In my theater, a woman opened a box of Tic Tacs, which is like weirdly one of the most recognizable sounds in food.
Yeah.
And it was just like that click, pop, open, and then a single Tic Tac fell out of the box, hit the floor, and rolled, and 2 people were like, shh.
Yeah.
So that's how quiet it gets in there. So keep it down. One last thing. I enjoy going to see movies at the Alamo Drafthouse because they have, you can get cheeseburgers and alcohol, and it's great. Also, that's the worst place to see this movie, straight up. That if you go to that movie theater, there will be men and women scurrying around constantly. They will be putting your check down. There's just a lot of clanging and a lot of noises that happen in that theater. They're making drinks in the back, they're bringing out all this food. It's very different than just like people bringing out a bag of popcorn and slowly eating it. Now, to sort of circumvent that, some Alamo Draft houses introduced a quiet menu, which I think is really clever. It's all like soft foods, like pretzels and chicken tenders and just like cotton candy, things like that. Things that you can eat.
A nice quiet
just
bisque.
A nice quiet, like a soup that you can't slurp.
Cotton candy.
A medium temperatured soup.
All right.
A good broth for the whole family. That said, I don't think that's the place to see that movie. I will go see Avengers there, Star Wars. That's a fun time. Even though a guy walked in front of at the end of Force Awakens, a guy walked in front of when Luke Skywalker came out, and he was like, "I got your check," and I was like, "It's Luke Skywalker. Get the sit down." So yeah, shout out to Alamo Drafthouse. Don't go see that movie there. Go see that movie at a quiet theater with quiet friends and be a quiet person.
If you don't have any quiet friends or a local quiet theater, wait until it hits on demand and just soundproof your own house.
And don't fart, you sick dude.
Fart,
don't fart in that room. Everyone will hear that fart.
Anyway,
that thing over.
Before we go real quick, obviously monster movies are a good fun time. Lego sets are a good fun time as well.
Yes.
Finally, these two things have been combined in honor of the 25th anniversary of the original Jurassic Park. They're finally making Lego sets, Lego set singular, based on the original film. I love this. This makes me so happy. This is such a wonderful, nerdy attention to detail. So this is coming out. I think it's out for pre-order now. It's $40. It's called Jurassic Park Velociraptor chase, which is
Yeah.
weird because it's all indoors, but it's the whole end of the movie where they're all in that, the kids see that they have the snacks, and then the raptors show up and they start poking through doors and
It's
stuff.
still labeled Jurassic World. It's also
Yeah.
weirdly, anachronistic because it combines a bunch of moments from that film into one place.
Right.
I guess to kind of
Yeah,
get around
they
the
do
fact
that.
to get around the
Yeah.
fact that they're not making multiple sets, right?
Sure, but I hope they make more Lego sets based on the original Jurassic Park, because this one is really, really hilarious.
Yes.
If you look closely on the monitor that Lex is trying to hack into the Unix system of, it's got Wayne Knight as Dennis Nedry there, and he says, like you didn't say the magic word or whatever. Meanwhile, Timmy over in the corner here with his weird salami. If you look behind him, there's that pile of little green things. That is the Jell-O that Lex is eating when the raptors show up. Like
Yeah.
there's that famous shot of her holding the Jell-O and she sees the raptor's shadow and she's just shaking. They made a Lego set of that. They
That's
made
awesome.
that, and then you've got the embryos over on the side there. There he is. Look at him.
There's
He's
that boy.
freaking out over that salami.
I know.
But yeah, the figures, like the raptors.
Oh,
come in.
hello.
You can try to lock the doors. Look at this. I don't know. It seems like so perfect. It's got the map of
This
Isla
is like
Nublar on
Raptor
one
is
side.
watching you fap.
Yeah, this is not a great dinosaur. I don't like his face. I really want this set. Also, I want those little Jeeps. I think they need to make those. They need to make one of Newman, and he's in his Jeep with his shaving cream can full of weird dinosaur stuff.
Yep, and he's getting spit in the face.
And he's just, I want him with a little face that spins around, and one of it's got spit on it,
Yep.
and he's got a stick he can hold out.
There he
Exactly.
is.
Make me that man. I love his style. He's got Hawaiian shirts,
Yeah,
and
we know
members
you
only
like his
jackets.
style, Max.
I
We
love.
know.
I want the toy of the man in the Jeep, and this concludes my story about the Jurassic Park Lego sets.
You want to? I think you should
The end.
gain. How about this? Halloween. Let's do couples Halloween. You gain 200 pounds. You be that dude, and I'll be your raptor.
We should be Newman and the Dilophosaurus.
Oh, I'll be a
That would actually be
Dilophosaurus.
Good, yeah.
Yeah, and I'll put a bunch of like, I don't know, what is it from the Sandlot? Dip, where they all puke on the ride.
Yeah, I don't like that at all.
I'll put some chewing tobacco in my mouth and spit in your face.
All right, we got to wind things up. This has been a wonderful show in spite of us not being live. If you tuned in live, thank you very much. We'll be back to normal next week with a good old-fashioned fun time live screw-around nonsense thing we do here.
No, we probably won't.
Probably not?
No.
All right, well, whatever. We won't.
We
We'll
will do
try.
another episode, though.
We'll do what we can. We'll do something.
Yeah, we'll
and
do
everything
something.
will be fine.
Everything's gonna be okay.
On that note, I hope you all have a wonderful weekend and a okay Friday. And then the rest of whatever time it is where you are.
I hope you have the best Sunday of your life, but Saturday is not great.
I hope you have the best Saturday of your life, but it doesn't happen for 30 years. Good night.
See you soon. Hope you have the best Monday ever.
Happy Arbor Day.
Hope you get sick on Tuesday.
Tuesdays are terrible.
Wednesday is for the good day for the diarrhea.
Thursdays are okay.
Friday is a good night.
Friday
to
is
watch TGIF.
the king of the week.
Go
they
eat
call
at
it.
TGI Friday.
Yeah.
Thanks, golf.
I think they want us to stop talking in the studio now.
Happy Saturday.
Happy Saturday.
Happy Saturday.